What if I told you that you have already felt it, not imagined it, not read about it, felt it somewhere in your chest, in some quiet, unguarded moment when you were alone and the world went still and something inside you whispered, "Something is coming." You felt that, haven't you? I have, more times than I can count. And I used to think it was just anxiety or nostalgia or some strange echo of a prayer I'd half forgotten. But then I went deep, really deep, into what Jesus actually said about the rapture. Not what people argue about, not the theology debates, what he said, word by word. And what I found, it didn't just change my understanding. It haunted me in the best possible way. Because in his words, in the visions he gave, in the moments he described, there is a picture of the first second of the rapture that most people have never stopped long enough to truly see. And by the time this video is over, I promise you, you will never read those passages the same way again. You will never go to sleep at night without thinking about it. And I genuinely believe that what we're going to walk through together today is going to leave something permanent in you, something good, something real, something that changes the way you live tomorrow morning. So stay with me because we're about to go somewhere together that most Bible studies never take you. Let me start with something simple. Close your eyes for just a moment. Well, don't actually close them, you're watching. But picture this with me. It's an ordinary Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Sunday afternoon. The sun is doing what the sun does. People are walking, driving, talking on their phones, cooking dinner, arguing about nothing, laughing about something silly. The world is just moving. And then, in one single, unannounced, unscheduled, absolutely impossible to predict moment, everything changes. Paul writes about it in 1 Corinthians 15:52. He says it will happen in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. The twinkling of an eye. Do you know how fast that is? Scientists have measured the blink of a human eye. It takes between 150 and 400 milliseconds. The twinkle, that little glint of light, is even faster. We're talking fractions of a second, a sliver of time so small it barely qualifies as time at all. And in that sliver, in that impossible fragment of a second, everything that Jesus promised will begin. Now, most of us, when we think about the rapture, we think about what comes after. The trumpet, the clouds, the reunion, the glory, and those things are real and they are magnificent and we should absolutely talk about them. But today I want to go somewhere different. I want to take you to the first moment, the very first fraction of a second. Because what Jesus revealed through his words, through the visions he gave to the Apostle John, through the imagery woven through the Gospels, what he revealed about that single moment is so precise, so personal, so tender, that I genuinely don't understand why we don't talk about it more. Here's what I need you to hold in your mind as we go forward. The rapture is not just an event. According to Jesus, it is a meeting, a reunion, a moment of recognition between the Creator and every soul that has ever carried his name in their heart. And the first thing that happens, the very first thing, is not a sound. It's not a light. It's not a transformation of the body. It is something far more intimate than any of those things. And we'll get there. I promise we'll get there. But first, let me tell you about a moment in John chapter 11 that I think most people read past without realizing what Jesus is actually showing us. You know the story. Everyone knows the story. Lazarus is dead. He's been dead for 4 days. His sisters, Mary and Martha, are devastated, not just grieving, but shattered. Because Jesus was supposed to come. He was supposed to be there, and he wasn't. And there's that famous verse, John 11:35. Jesus wept, the shortest verse in the Bible, and probably the most important one for understanding who he really is. He didn't have to weep. He knew what was about to happen. He knew Lazarus was coming back. He knew within minutes, within the hour, the whole situation was going to reverse. He could see the end of the story, and yet he wept because the grief of the people around him moved him, because their loss was real to him even when he held the solution in his hands, because he chose to enter fully into the pain of that moment rather than stand above it. Now, why am I telling you this? Because I believe that the rapture scene that Jesus describes and the vision he gives John in Revelation is saturated with this same quality. Not cold divine efficiency, not a mechanical transaction of souls, but this: what Jesus showed at the tomb of Lazarus, a God who feels, a God who runs toward his people, a God for whom the reunion is not just logistical, it is emotional, deeply, overwhelmingly, genuinely emotional. And when Jesus stands outside that tomb and calls out, "Lazarus, come forth, I want you to hear something," in that moment, he called him by name, not the dead man, not this soul, not a general announcement to whoever might be listening. He called his name. Can I tell you something that stopped me completely when I first understood it? In 1 Thessalonians 4:16, Paul writes that the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout. Theologians have debated for centuries what that shout is, what words it contains, what language it's spoken in. But there's a school of thought grounded deeply in the pattern of Scripture that says that shout is not a general announcement, it is a call. And based on the pattern that Jesus established at Lazarus's tomb, based on the pattern he established every single time he called someone to follow him, that call is personal. Think about that for a second. Every name called, yours, mine, your grandmother's, your child's, your friend who gave their life to him in a hospital room at 2 a.m, every single person who ever whispered his name in the dark and meant it with their whole heart, called by name in a fraction of a second, because he is God, and time works differently for him than it does for us. You are not going to be one face in a crowd at the rapture. You are going to be called. And what I'm about to share with you next will completely change the way you read the book of Revelation, specifically the letters to the 7 churches, and why Jesus closes almost every single one of them with a phrase that I believe is a direct preview of that moment. Stay with me. In Revelation chapter 2, Jesus is speaking to the church at Pergamum, a community of believers living in one of the most spiritually hostile cities in the ancient world, a city literally described as the place where Satan's throne was. And they had stayed faithful, they had held on, they had not denied his name even when the pressure to do so was overwhelming. And Jesus says to them, to this battered, faithful, holding on community, he says, "To the one who is victorious, I will give some of the hidden manna. I will also give that person a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to the one who receives it. A white stone, a new name, known only to the one who receives it." I've sat with this verse for years, and the more I sit with it, the more I'm convinced it's not incidental. It's not just a nice, symbolic reward tucked at the end of a letter. It is a preview of intimacy. In the ancient world, a white stone given by a judge meant acquittal, freedom. You are not condemned. In the context of close relationships, a white stone exchanged between friends was a symbol of deep personal bond, a covenant of loyalty and knowing. And on that stone, Jesus says, a new name, a name that only you and he will know, a name that captures something about who you truly are. The version of you that he sees, the version of you that even you may not fully see yet. And I genuinely believe that in the first moment of the rapture, that name is what gets spoken, not your Monday morning name, not the name people use when they're disappointed in you or when they need something from you. The true name, the name he's been holding since before you were born. That's the call. That's the shout. But here's what I need you to understand, and this is the part that people almost always skip over. The rapture, as Jesus describes it, particularly in Matthew 24 and in his private teaching to the disciples on the Mount of Olives, is not a random sweep of souls. It is a recognition, a two-way recognition. He recognizes you, and in that same fraction of a second, you recognize him. And the question that haunted me when I first truly sat with this was, what does that feel like? What does it feel like to recognize someone you've loved your whole life but never seen face to face? I want to tell you something personal. My faith has had seasons, like most people's, I think, seasons of fire and seasons of drought. seasons where I felt his presence like a physical warmth, and seasons where I prayed into what felt like silence and just kept going, kept trusting. Because what else do you do when you've seen enough to know he's real, but not enough to stop the doubt from whispering? And in one of those quieter seasons, I was reading the Gospel of John, chapter 20, the resurrection morning. And I got to the moment where Mary Magdalene is standing outside the tomb. She's been crying. She's broken. She turns and sees someone she doesn't recognize. She thinks he's the gardener. And she says, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." And Jesus says one word, "Mary," one word. And she knows instantly, completely, without question. She knows, not because of what he looks like, not because of logical deduction, not because of any external evidence, because he said her name. And the way he said it was something that only he could say. That, to me, is the most accurate picture we have of what the first moment of the rapture will feel like for every believer. Not confusion, not fear, not even shock, though I'm sure there's shock. Recognition, instant, overwhelming, total recognition. And in that recognition, an emotion for which I'm not sure we have a word, not just joy, not just relief, not just love. Something that is all of those things multiplied by every moment you ever trusted him in the dark without seeing, every prayer, every surrender, every time you chose faith when fear made more sense. All of it, rushing back to you in a single moment of, you were there, you were always there. I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. Okay, I need to pause here for a second because there's something I want to show you that might seem like a strange detour, but stay with me because it connects. Neuroscientists who study the experience of profound recognition, the moment when a person sees a face they deeply love after years of separation, have found something remarkable. In that moment, the brain doesn't process the face the way it normally processes faces. It bypasses the standard visual recognition pathway almost entirely. Instead, it activates the same regions associated with spiritual experience, the same regions active in deep meditation, in moments of what people describe as transcendent awe. In other words, the brain treats deep recognition of a beloved person as something sacred. Science is accidentally confirming what John chapter 20 already told us. The moment of recognition is not ordinary. It is holy, and if that's true between two human beings, imagine what it means between a soul and its creator. Because what I haven't told you yet, what we haven't gotten to, is what Jesus specifically said about what you will feel in your body in that first moment. And this is where it gets extraordinary. This is where the passage in 1 Corinthians and the vision of John in Revelation chapter 4 come together in a way that I've never heard preached. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15 this incredible passage about the resurrection body. And he says something that I think we breeze past because it sounds like poetry, but is actually extraordinarily specific. He says, "The body that is sown is perishable. It is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body, sown in weakness, raised in power." Now think about what that means for the first moment. Every single person caught up in the rapture has spent their entire life in a body that gets tired, that gets sick, that carries pain, physical pain, emotional pain, the accumulated weight of decades of being human in a broken world. Every person who has ever wrestled with chronic illness and still praised him. Every person who has carried grief so heavy it bent them double and still held on. Every person who has fought through depression, through addiction, through loss, and chose every single morning to still belong to him. In the first moment of the rapture, all of that, gone. Not just healed, not just better, transformed. In the twinkling of an eye, Paul says, that same flash, that same fraction of a second in which he calls your name, in that same moment, your body becomes what it was always meant to be. And here's the part that gets me every time. You won't need a moment to adjust. You won't need a moment to catch up because the new body, the spiritual body, the glorious body, it will simply fit. Like you've been wearing a coat that was slightly wrong your whole life and you just slipped it off. It will feel like coming home into yourself. Now, Here's the question that naturally follows, and it's one that I think about a lot. If all of this happens in the twinkling of an eye, the call, the recognition, the transformation, what is the very first conscious thought of a raptured believer? Jesus actually gives us a clue, and it's hidden in a parable that most people read as being purely about the end times, but which I believe is also a precise emotional portrait of that first moment. Luke chapter 15. The prodigal son. You know this one too. Possibly the most beloved parable Jesus ever told. The son comes home, he's rehearsed his speech, he's going to say, "Father, I am no longer worthy to be called your son, make me like one of your hired servants." But he never gets to deliver it, because while he was still a great way off, the father sees him, runs to him, falls on his neck, kisses him. While he was still a great way off, the father wasn't waiting inside the house. He was watching. He was looking for that silhouette on the horizon. And the moment he saw it, he didn't wait. He didn't compose himself. He didn't prepare a dignified welcome. He ran. Now here's what I want you to notice. The son had a speech. The son had prepared words. But when the father ran to him and embraced him, all of that fell away. What did the son feel in that moment? We're not told in words, but we don't need to be. We know because we're human. We know what it feels like when someone runs toward you with that kind of love. Everything else falls away. Every carefully prepared thought, every rehearsed apology, every mental image you had of how this moment would go, all of it swept clean by the simple, overwhelming, irresistible reality of being loved by this particular person. I believe that is the first conscious thought of every raptured believer. Not "this is the rapture," not "I should remember this," not even a coherent theological observation. Just, "He loves me. He actually loves me. It's real. It was always real." And you will spend eternity, an eternity that never gets old, never gets repetitive, never diminishes, discovering just how real. Here's something that a lot of people don't know. In the early centuries of the church, before Christianity was legal, before there were cathedral buildings and formal liturgy, believers gathered in secret, in catacombs, in private homes, at risk of their lives, and one of the most common images they painted on the walls of those underground gathering places, one of the symbols that appeared again and again in the earliest Christian art we've ever found, was a figure with arms raised. The orans posture, arms raised toward heaven. Scholars debate the full meaning, but one persistent interpretation, one that the earliest church writers point toward, is that it represents the soul in the moment of rapture, of ascension, of being caught up, arms raised, not in surrender, in welcome. Think about that. The earliest Christians, the ones who were risking everything, who were being thrown to lions, who were watching their friends die for this faith, their image of the rapture was not terror. It was welcome, arms open, face turned upward, a posture of joy. These were people who had read the same words of Jesus we have. They heard the same promises, and what they painted on the walls of the places where they worshiped in secret was, "We are ready, we are not afraid. And when that moment comes, we will rise with our arms open." And I haven't even gotten yet to the part of Jesus' teaching that I think is the most overlooked, the part where he specifically describes what he will be doing in that moment, what his posture will be, what his face will show. And when I found it, when I truly understood it, I sat with it for a long time in silence, because it's not what you expect. It is so much more. In John chapter 14, Jesus is with his disciples the night before the crucifixion. He knows what's coming. They don't fully understand yet. And he says to them, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. I will come back. I will come back and take you to be with me." Now, I want you to stop on the phrase, "prepare a place for you." In the ancient Jewish wedding tradition, which Jesus and his disciples would have known intimately, when a young man was betrothed to a woman, he would go to his father's house and build an extension, a room, a place for his bride. He would work on it for months, sometimes years, and when it was ready, When his father said it was ready, he would go and get her. Jesus is using wedding language. He has been preparing. For 2,000 years, he has been preparing. And when he comes, when that trumpet sounds and that call goes out, he is not coming as a commander retrieving troops. He is not coming as a judge executing sentence. He is coming as a groom, running for his bride, with everything ready, with 2,000 years of longing behind his eyes. And this is the posture of his face in that first moment. Not stern, not distant, not regal in a cold, untouchable way. Longing, and then joy. The joy of a groom who has waited and prepared and loved faithfully across an impossible distance. Finally, seeing the face of the one he's been waiting for. I don't know what your life looks like right now. I don't know if you're watching this from a place of deep peace, or if you're in a season where faith feels like a discipline rather than a feeling. I don't know if you're carrying something heavy, something private, something that you haven't even been able to fully articulate to yourself, but I want to say this directly to you. The rapture is not an escape plan. It is a homecoming. It is the moment when every prayer you prayed in private gets answered in person. Every night you chose to trust when trusting was hard. He was watching. Every morning you got up and tried again. He was there. Every quiet moment of surrender, every "I don't understand, but I trust you anyway." He heard every single one. And in that first moment, in that twinkling of an eye, all of it comes full circle. He will call your name, you will know his voice, and everything will make sense. Not because he'll explain it all in a lecture, but because in the presence of that kind of love, the questions dissolve, not because they don't matter, but because the answer is standing right in front of you. I want to stop here for a moment before we reach the end, because this is the part where I genuinely want to hear from you. What did you feel just now? What comes up in your heart when you imagine that moment? Your name called by that voice in that first fraction of a second? Is it peace? Is it longing? Is it a kind of ache you can't quite name? Is it something you've been afraid to hope for? Write it in the comments. Please, I'm not asking to fill the comments section. I'm asking because I genuinely believe that when people share these things, when we put words to the deep things, something shifts. Something is named that was waiting to be named. Tell me what you feel when you think about this. I'd love to read it. Now, the title of this video says, "This will haunt every believer." And I chose that word very deliberately because I think it's the right word. A haunting is not always a frightening thing. Sometimes a haunting is something beautiful that won't leave you alone. A piece of music that keeps playing in your mind 3 days after you heard it. A sunset that you keep seeing behind your eyes. A conversation that rearranged something in you and you're still working out exactly what. What I hope this does to you, what the words of Jesus about this moment have done to me, is haunt you in that second sense. I hope that tomorrow morning when you wake up and the ordinary Tuesdayness of life comes crashing back in, the to-do list, the emails, the traffic, the small anxieties, I hope somewhere underneath all of it, this is running. He's going to call my name. He's been preparing. He's coming like a groom. And it could be today, not as a source of anxiety, not as a reason to disengage from the life you're living, but as a reorientation, a tuning fork that gets you back in pitch with what actually matters. Because here's what I've found, and this is the thing I most want to leave with you today. The more seriously you take the reality of the rapture's first moment, the more seriously you take every moment. When you understand that he is going to call your name, you start to understand that he already knows your name right now, today, in the middle of your ordinary Wednesday. You are not a statistic in his plan. You are not a unit of eschatological processing. You are a person he loves with a specificity and a tenderness and a depth that would stagger you if you could fully see it. The rapture doesn't create that love, it reveals it. It pulls back the curtain on something that has been true from the moment he knit you together in your mother's womb and called you by name then too. So where does this leave us? I think it leaves us with a practice, not a performance, not a checklist, a practice, the practice of remembering, of returning, of letting the reality of his love, the reality of that coming moment, work itself into the fabric of how you move through your days. In the early church, believers had a greeting they used with each other. a word that they said when they met, almost like a secret language among people who understood what the other was carrying. Maranatha, it's Aramaic. It means, "Come, Lord Jesus," or alternatively, "Our Lord has come," both at once, both true at once. He has come. He came to Bethlehem. He walked those roads. He died and rose, and the tomb is empty, and that changes everything. And he is coming back soon, in the twinkling of an eye, with your name in his mouth and 2,000 years of longing in his eyes, and a place prepared that has been waiting for you since before the foundations of the world. Maranatha. Say it when you wake up. Say it when you're stuck in traffic. Say it when you're tired and faith feels thin. Let it remind you of what is true. He came, he is coming. You are known, you are loved, you are called. And somewhere in the future, in a moment as ordinary as every other moment, until it suddenly, completely, gloriously isn't, the trumpet will sound, and you will hear your name, and your arms will go up, and you will go home. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this meant something to you, if something landed, if something shifted, please share it, because someone in your life needs to hear this. Someone who's carrying something heavy, someone whose faith is tired, someone who has forgotten that they are known. Share it with them. Let this be something you give. And if you're not yet sure about all of this, if you're watching from a place of honest uncertainty and something in you is stirring, I just want to say that stirring is worth following. Don't dismiss it. Sit with it. Talk to him about it. He's not afraid of your questions. He's been waiting for exactly this conversation. God bless you. I'll see you in the next one. Maranatha.